Okay, in the previous lesson we talked about the variables, how to create variables, how to call them, how to store values in variables, and then what are the valid variable names. In this one I'm going to expand on that and talk about JavaScript being an untyped language and what that means. So let me just put that in the comments. So JavaScript is an untyped language. Oops. So two types of languages, typed and untyped. What that means is in other languages like Java, C#, C++, when I create a variable, I actually need to specify what type of data gets stored in there. So I would need to do something like this if it's going to be a number. I have to say like int x equals, can't hit my equal sign, int x equals 10. Or if it was a decimal, I would do something like double or float y equals 2.5. If it were a string, I would do something like string my name equals Mr. Wiles, like I did before, etc. Booleans. So I'd have to specify the data type. And you can see that I'm getting errors in here trying to do that because JavaScript, we don't do that. JavaScript, we just say var. And that means I'm creating a variable that can hold anything. That box that I created called my first name is allowed to hold any type of value. In other languages, when I create int x, well, that box can only hold integers. If I try to put a double in there, what's actually going to happen is it's going to cut the 0.5 off and just store it as 2 because it's only allowed to store integers. If I try to put Mr. Wiles in there, I'm going to get an error because it can't even convert that to an integer. So this would be typed languages, Java, C#, etc. But JavaScript, we are just creating a generic variable that can hold anything. So that might seem like that's actually a really good thing because then it makes it easier. I don't have to know ahead of time what's going to be in there. And in some ways it is, but you can run into some unexpected problems. And let me show you what I mean by that. So if I do something like this, var x equals, let's say 10, and var y equals, let's say 4. And then I do something like this, where I have Mr. Wiles has been teaching, and then let's actually make this more accurate. Let's make that a 20 and a 5. There we go. And then I try to add those together. So I say Mr. Wiles has been teaching, and then I'm going to add or concatenate. The plus sign when dealing with numbers is just your normal addition. But when it's trying to combine strings with variables or strings with other things, it's referred to as the concatenator symbol. It concatenates, which just means to combine. So I want to combine that with the x plus y. So the expected result would be Mr. Wiles has been teaching 25, and then I will add in years. And I better put a, oh yeah, I did put the space there. So it should be saying Mr. Wiles has been teaching 25 years. If I save this, refresh it, that is not what I get. Mr. Wiles has been teaching 205 years. Not the result we were expecting. And this is where untyped languages can have some problems. So what's happening here is this is a string. So JavaScript says, okay, we're working with a string. Now we're concatenating. Okay, well, since this was a string, I must still be dealing with strings. So now it's just treating the x and the y as strings. Well, if I combine 20 and 5, I get 205 or 205. So that's what's happening right there. There's a couple of fixes for this. One would be to put parentheses around this because I can do order of operations. So order of operations is going to immediately see, okay, x plus y, since it's not doing any concatenating yet, it's just dealing with integers. Well, now if I refresh, there we go. Mr. Wiles has been teaching 25 years. So that's something you're going to have to keep in mind as you work with data, work with variables and stuff in JavaScript, especially when you come to points where you're concatenating the numbers along with text. Since JavaScript gets to treat the variables as it thinks they should be treated, you can sometimes have some weird errors in there. Now there are going to be ways where we can force it to treat them as integers, and that's further in the course. But for right now, just know this is a quick, easy fix by putting parentheses to make sure it does that. And notice also if I were to just put in, actually let me just do it down here. If I were just to put in x plus y down here, I'm not going to have any issue at all. If I refresh this now, I just get 25. And that's because since there's no strings involved, it just automatically knows, okay, I'm dealing with integers, I'm going to add them and treat them like numbers. It's only when we're trying to concatenate that we run into those issues. All right, so that's what it means to be untyped language, and that's one of the issues that we can have since JavaScript gets to guess what our data type is instead of us specifying it.